Welcome everyone to the Unilock Roof Decks, Unit Slabs, and Construction Best Practices presentation. My name is Danny Gatto. I'll be giving an introduction on Unilock, followed by my colleague David Robbins, who will be delivering today's presentation. We will follow the presentation with a question and answer period. We look forward to answering any questions you may have. We would love to hear from you, whether it's to review our products, review specifications and industry standards, or if you're currently working on any projects, we can definitely assist you. Please contact David or myself with any questions you may have. Here is our contact info. I'm going to begin with a brief history of Unilock, followed by the recorded segments with David. Unilock was founded by Ed Bryant, and the Bryant family are still the decision makers today. They continue to guide the company and make Unilock successful. Unilock has been in business for nearly 50 years, and we are the first manufacturer of concrete unit paving in North America. We are a Canadian company with our first operation beginning in Barrie and have since expanded our operations to Ayr, Gormley, Pickering, and Georgetown. We also have U.S. locations in Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, Milwaukee, and New York. We source local materials to manufacture our products, helping the communities we operate in. We manufacture quality products by producing unit paving and wall blocks with precise dimensional tolerances, low absorption rates, and high compressive strength. All of our products meet, but more often exceed industry standards. Unilock is a trendsetter and drives the unit paving and retaining wall industry with new and innovative products. The next few slides are some projects completed using our pavers in a roof deck application. During David's segments, he will describe in greater detail some of the different types of roof deck paver applications. The next few slides show a variety of applications. This is an elevated condo amenity space shown here with our large format slab. With this amenity space, traditional large plank style pavers were used. Here is a roof deck application using a mix of traditional small format pavers along with large slab pavers. And here is an elevated condo swimming pool deck using large format slab concrete pavers. Pedestrian bridges and elevated plazas are also a great place to use our pavers. And this one is a condo amenity terrace. To go along with our great products, we have a strong support team to assist you. We have a dedicated commercial sales team servicing the design community, engineers, and commercial contractors, with a focus in the Greater Toronto area, along with 4 territory managers looking after the outlying areas of Southern Ontario, from the Golden Horseshoe to the Ottawa region and north to the Georgian Bay region. We also have 2 project administrators to support our Unilock commercial team. With that said, we will start the recorded segments with David Robbins. David has been with Unilock for over 6 years. He has 20 years experience in the construction industry and environmental science industry. Also, he is a certified technical representative with Construction Specifications Canada. I will pass it over to David Robbins and he will begin the recorded segments.
Welcome to Construction Best Practices, Roof Deck Unit Paving. I'll be your host, David Robbins. Thank you for joining us. This will be our presentation agenda. I will start with our introduction, moving on to installation options, product information, and finally design considerations. The traditional roof deck was utilitarian in nature, essentially a ballast roof. These have now become programmed, environmentally conscious spaces for healthier lifestyles. 5 common roof decks we see are ballast or single ply, roof garden, pedestal roof decks, green roofs or cool roofs, and finally outdoor amenity spaces. What we're looking at here is a ballast or single ply roof. It's the simplest solution, basically a roof membrane covered with clear gravel as weight to prevent wind uplift. Obviously, this is a simple and functional approach, not intended for any kind of amenity space, does not provide any particular environmental advantage. At most, other than this, you may see a inexpensive path system made of thin pavers around any kind of HVAC equipment or davit arm setup, essentially for maintenance personnel. Next is the roof garden. We don't see this very often, but it's an excellent use of space that has been gaining popularity when the budget will allow it. Most notably, this has been proposed over the rail corridor near Union Station for future development, or seen here at Ryerson University Urban Farm in Toronto. Everyone is likely aware that any building in the City of Toronto, over 2,000 square meters of total floor area, requires that 20 to 60% of the available roof space be made up of a green or cool roof, depending on the total floor area. So we are obviously seeing many more of this type of roof, either totally green or in a combination of green roof and amenity space. Using green roofs provide many ecological benefits, such as reduced energy consumption for heating and cooling, which translates into less tax on this equipment, which ultimately results in saved dollars. You can also use them for stormwater retention, for irrigation of the gardens themselves, or perhaps even as gray water. Heat island mitigation, which is a huge topic, which comes up in the Toronto Green Standard all the time. But the downside is a lot of these solely green or garden roofs lack usable space or activity areas for users. That brings us to amenity space. For apartment buildings, for the example in Toronto, the City of Toronto, 4 square meters of amenity space must be provided per dwelling unit, with the potential of 25% of that being as a roof deck amenity space. And with every square meter in most cities being extremely valuable, it's important to make the most of it. The reemergence of outdoor spaces has become a highly desired amenity. It maximizes otherwise unused space, provides an activity space during seasonal months, and it creates an opportunity for attracting new tenants. In a way, the property balanced combination of extensive garden, pedestal roof deck, and garden roofs is essentially an outdoor amenity space. It's the best of everything. We at Unilock want to capitalize on that. We're an innovative and evolving company. Large format pavers, modular block seat walls and planter walls, natural stone and porcelain tile. Let's look at a few ways Unilock can help. We can see here Umbriano on the top of the Lowe's building in Chicago, overlooking the city skyline. Here's a great example of a green roof. The use of succulents, grasses, or hardy flowers will form an excellent area to cool and insulate the building. Not to mention, it's much nicer to look at from an office window. Paver maintenance paths can be seen around the entire area. This is an excellent use of space at 1 York in Toronto. Intricate design of Il Campo cut into a field of Umbriano. This is a great example of what could not be achieved with pedestals alone. If you were to use pedestals in a situation like this, you would need to cover the pedestals with base plates to achieve this look. 1 York seen here was installed on an HPB buildup. This elevated roof deck in Chicago is Umbriano, and this would be more typical of an install on pedestals. In order for the pedestal to pick up the corners of each paver, you would need to be looking at either a stacked or running bond laying pattern like you see here. Intricate detail like this job at 225 Davisville, which was installed on granular, would be extremely difficult on pedestals. Probably all recognize this site. It's obviously Toronto City Hall. It's an excellent amenity space installed on granular with the combination of a rooftop garden. Now we can discuss some install options for elevated and on-grade roof decks. We're going to explore some of the characteristics of each install, and then we're going to dive into each one in more depth. First up, we'll talk about slabs on pedestals. Raising slabs over the membrane consists of a variety of methods and products. The nature of the elevated install gives property owners access to the roof surface for ease of maintenance. Without the granular buildup for ballast or paver bedding, the weight is greatly reduced. But pedestals do not come cheap. They can range anywhere from $6 to $15 per unit. Now, depending on the heights and the method. And finally, as we discussed with pedestals, you are somewhat restricted to either large slabs or rectangles, squares, and limited laying patterns. This is without any added investment in base tiles on the pedestals. Slabs on granular or insulation. Honestly, this is what I see most often for roof deck installs. As a matter of fact, even when pedestals have been specified, and if the roof will allow it, value engineering tends to take over and the change is made to granular. And that's simply just to take advantage of the price difference. The downside is generally when it comes to maintenance. So having to pull up the pavers, dig out the granular just to get to a leaking membrane or a clogged drain. This can be the biggest downside. Other than that, it could be more difficult to get the stone up to the site, as well as the weight difference on the roof. But other than that, we still see this more often than pavers over a concrete deck. As you might guess, this method is generally reserved for on-grade paving, either over a slab or over an underground parking structure. I tend to see this, obviously, condo driveways, parking areas is where we see this the most. So now we'll take a look at pedestals. We're going to look at some different pedestal styles, some of the different features, and some of the install methods used for pedestals. Here's a cross-section of a typical pedestal install using screw jack pedestals. I definitely recommend you take a look at some of these cross-sections on our website, unilock.com. Under the resource section, there's a lot of great detail there. So starting over here, we can see a very simplistic method of using a pedestal. Essentially, it's just a stack of discs, one on top of the other, kind of like records, just stacked one on top of the other until you reach your desired height. All the way over here on the left, you have a screw jack pedestal, which is a complete unit. You can unscrew and screw for desired height. Here's a better look at how the screw jack pedestals actually operate. So essentially, screw to one way to move the pedestal up in height and screw it the other way to move it down. You can also see you can adjust the slope and the grade on the top and bottom of the pedestal. Also, here is some great information on how to plan out your pedestals and where they should go for each style of paver. So when you come across the 60 by 60 centimeter typical square paver that you see most often on pedestal projects, one pedestal per corner is more than enough. It will work. When you get into some of the larger rectangles, some of the larger pavers, then a middle pedestal should also be considered. And that's just obviously to pick up the point load. When using a larger rectangle, you could also consider a running bond situation or laying pattern and using a pedestal in the middle of the paver so that it picks up the corner of the adjacent paver. This is a relatively inexpensive method for pedestals. Essentially what we're looking at here is some cut PVC pipe with a cap pedestal spacer top and then a base cap. The contractor can then cut on site according to the roof slope. These are an adjustable unit that actually Unilock is going to begin to carry in 2021. The adjustable units have the ability to raise from 30 millimeters to 420 millimeters. This is the new Unilock screw jack pedestal system. The wide bases offer support, and with the weight of pavers on top, they are very stable on any elevated roof deck application. Depending on the project, we can offer pedestals from either 30 millimeters all the way up to 220 millimeters. I do advise that you contact your Unilock rep, as some of the sizes are not stocked and require some lead time to bring in. Here we can see the pedestal assembly. The pedestals come complete with gap spacers, which create a 3 millimeter joint between each paver. This may or may not be required depending on the paver you have decided on using. Some pavers, such as porcelain tile, do not have intrinsic spacer bars, while other precast pavers do. Best thing to do is to contact a Unilock rep that can walk you through the process. As mentioned, the screw system is used to increase the height of the pedestal, and a height coupler can also be incorporated to provide increased height if needed. A rubber shim can be incorporated to offer noise reduction, and a self-leveling head reduces the surface slope to 7%. These are some of the technical specifications for our new Unilock pedestal. The material is recycled polypropylene. The height range is between 30 and 420 millimeters. The strength of each pedestal can be listed here at 2,360 pounds for the T series, or the M series can be listed at 3,372 pounds. The spacer gap is 3 millimeters, as we previously mentioned. It has good resistance to molds, algae, and good resistance to alkali or bitumen. Full technical specifications can be available by contacting your Unilock rep. These are some of the advantages of the pedestal system. Obviously, since they are raised and spaced without any joint compound, water is allowed to easily pass through the joints and reach the roof drains. Again, given the fact that the pedestals raise the platform above the roof membrane, this can create an air gap, allowing for circulation, which in turn allows for durability and longevity of the membrane. As an added benefit of the platform, reduced exposure to UV rays can be taken advantage of. The void space created by elevating the platform can facilitate in any services that need to be run along the roof deck, such as gas, electrical gas, or water. Finally, the pedestals provide a low weight and level surface that can be used for an amenity space, which adds significant value for the tenant and ultimately the owner. For slabs on insulation, we would definitely be looking at this type of setup if the weight restrictions will not allow for granular and pedestals don't work for your budget. This is a great weight reduction option. It's a buildup with insulation and then a normal bedding layer of sand or high performance bedding with the pavers. Granular over concrete. This is most common, granular buildup with a roof drain. What's most important is the drainage, making sure that the water gets to that slab drain. The use of free draining gravel is probably your best option here. A high performance bedding is between 4 and 6 millimeter angular chip gravel, free of fines, that will allow the water to flow freely through the joints and reach the drain below. Lastly, we have pavers on a concrete deck. So this is the most common setup we see for pavers at grade on concrete. Basically, you have your bi-level drain with a sand setting bed and pavers over concrete. This section will be about design considerations. Some design considerations for elevated roof decks will certainly contain some environmental or local requirements. For instance, in the city of Toronto, the Toronto Green Standard dictates that 50% of the elevated roof deck needs to be either green roof or a combination of green and cool roof. A cool roof will more often than not involve some high albedo paving. These pavers are pavers which are highly reflective and meet at least 29 on the SRI chart. The goals of your project will help you determine the right method for install, whether it be pedestals or on granular. If, for instance, you want an elaborate design with various size pavers with cuts, then obviously I would steer you towards a granular base approach. Ultimately, budget will drive most of the decisions, obviously. Either way, I invite you to reach out to your Unilock rep. We can definitely steer you in the right direction or help you find the right solution to your elevator roof deck issues. Finally, I wanted to share some common problems that I run into with on-grade roof slab installs. First among these concerns is differential settlement. When paving over an underground parking garage or any concrete structure, we see issues arise from areas where you may have two slabs meeting, or where the paving on the slab changes from on concrete to a section on granular. This photo here happens to be where the slabs from two parking garages are at two different heights. You can see a clear line where the settlement is creating some separation in the paving joints. This leads to rocking, which leads to damage, and once all the jointing material has been pumped out, the pavers don't stand a chance. This photo of a job in Toronto clearly shows you how important the roles of shape and laying pattern can play in the success of any platform. The area that was laid in a running bond consisting of square pavers, over the years of turning torque from turning tires and the force of stopping and starting vehicular loads, have contributed to the paver joints opening up. And once that happens, the jointing material is allowed to be evacuated, and that's just going to lead to ultimate failure. That's definitely not going to get any better. Conversely, you can definitely see how the herringbone pattern is holding up quite well. Lastly, drainage. Obviously, this is the same job as the previous slide, but when the water has nowhere to go, it will escape wherever it can. In this case, the pavers were installed on limestone screenings. The nature of screenings are such that they create a compact, non-porous surface. Then the hydrostatic pressure of vehicular loads pumps the joint material out, and eventually it leads to overall failure. The takeaway here is never use limestone screenings. Always use a Unilock recommended installation method. Avoid squares, rectangles, and a herringbone are always going to be far superior. We don't all love herringbone patterns all the time, but in this case, it's ultimately a better solution. I haven't come across a lot of the concerns that I've shown you in the last few slides. Overall, the installs are very good, but when they do happen, it can be quite frustrating. And that's why I'm pretty happy to introduce this product that we'll be carrying in 2021. It's a base stabilization grid by a company called iWatt. The idea behind it is if you can create a stable base, then any paving that you put on it will be able to sustain any kind of vehicular load you come across. This product actually acts kind of like a snowshoe. It disperses the weight. When the soil contained within the grid is subjected to vehicular loads, the grid holds the granular in place, so they have nowhere to go, and therefore resist all displacement, and that means no ruts, pots, or differential settlement. We're going to have lots of great information coming up soon on this product, so please stay in touch with your rep for more info. Now, to round out our design consideration section, I wanted to jump back onto laying patterns and something we call aspect ratio. Now, herringbone is definitely the best pattern for vehicular applications. I've probably beaten that one to death. It just is. It provides the best possible lockup between pavers. For heavy duty applications, we also recommend a 3-to-1 ratio between the length of the paver and the height of the paver. This is a relationship we call aspect ratio. Alternatively, for light duty or residential vehicular situations, we would recommend a 4-to-1 ratio. So if you take a 400 millimeter paver in length, the height of that paver should be 100 millimeters. For pedestrian applications, we're not really concerned with this at all, unless the area could be subject to occasional vehicular from, say, delivery vehicles or perhaps snow removal equipment. So that concludes this section, and before we jump on, let's take some more questions. For the final portion of our presentation, I wanted to review some of the new innovative products that Unilock has to offer for elevated roof decks. Right before I get there, though, I just wanted to briefly touch on some of the technological advances Unilock has brought to the industry. First up is Ultima. Ultima is a wet cast style of concrete that is pretty cool. It enables us to make concrete products that emulate old world products, like clay pavers. This particular picture you're looking at is a side-by-side of Unilock concrete pavers matched up to the existing century-old clay pavers in the Distillery District in Toronto. You can find this type of technology in products like Copthorne, Quartzstone, Richcliffe, and Town Hall. Next up is Color Fusion. Now, Color Fusion is a proprietary technology that disperses color randomly using tiny aggregate in the face of the paver on products like Umbriano. This creates a natural, random granite-like appearance that is so distinctly Umbriano. In addition to the interesting colors and finishes we can produce using Color Fusion, we go one step further by sealing the face of the product. Using the CF90 Easy Clean Sealer, we can factory seal in the paver so that it creates a barrier between any outside organics or staining and the paver itself. Any staining that you do pick up on the paving surface should be easily washed off with a pressure washer. This keeps the paver looking brand new for the life of the product, and is a big reason why it's so popular commercially. I'm now briefly going to run through finishes. Most of our products fit into one of three categories. The first one being classic. Now, this is your traditional style concrete, basically concrete and pigment throughout the paver. A very budget-friendly, durable style of paving. I often get asked what the difference is between these two styles of paving, through mix and something called face mix. This graphic, I feel like, illustrates it better than I can explain it. On the through mix side, you can see the aggregate start to shine through on the face of the product. On the face mix side, that's covered up by a thin coating of concrete, usually about a 1/4 inch. This is the same color, but you can drastically see the difference in the face mix side. Enduracolor. Now, this is a two-step manufacturing process that combines a base coarser aggregate for strength and a strong foundation, and then a face mix, a 1/4 inch of almost pure cement and tiny aggregate on the face. Now, this helps lock up the face of the paver. It prevents absorption of water or anything else that could harm the paver. It also allows us to do very cool things with color and finish. Finally, elegance. Now, elegance is a wet cast paver. We've already kind of touched on it, but it gives you the idea of what we can do with wet cast and mold technology. We can take examples from real life, whether it be the Distillery District example I showed before, or if it's river stone that we've taken cast mold of and are able to create a stacked stone wall like Rivercrest. Now, the first slab I want to talk about is the Metro slab. This is a budget-friendly option, 380 by 760, 60 millimeters thick, comes in 3 different colors, and is a great option for a budget-minded customer. As we move into our first Enduracolor slab, the Beacon Hill Smooth slab, you're going to notice the difference between the Metro slab, monochromatic, into the Beacon Hill slab, where we can introduce fusion colors. So you can see the deep oranges in the Almond Grove Fusion, or the gray and white with the white cement in the Granite Fusion. So this is a very cool looking slab that would look great on any roof deck project. Worth noting, the opal blend color slab is 32 on the SRI scale, so that will be friendly for any TGS job. I'm happy to introduce Arcana. It's our brand new slab that we only started producing this year. It's a 600 by 600 50 mil slab, which comes in at our thinnest available slab, that we also seal. So that easy clean technology I was talking about before, we actually apply it to the Arcana slab. What I really like about it is it's made on a hermetic press, which gives it the look of terrazzo. Continuing on with sealed slabs, we've expanded our Umbriano offering. So in addition to the traditional sizes that we have to offer, we now have a 540 by 890 60 mil thick slab. In addition to that, we've added two new 100 mil thick pavers. The 36 by 36 100 mil and the 18 by 36 100 mil. So for all you out there that were very interested in large honkin' slabs, this is definitely one for you. I really like this new product. It's called Ravella. It's basically our regular series paver, or in the case of mica gray, our Beacon Hill style paver. And what we've done is applied a shot blast treatment to it. This really brings out a lot of the depth, especially in metallic gray and Savannah. These pavers, which are typically series, so that exposed aggregate looking paver, it really adds a new depth and a new color. It's a very dramatic looking finish. I really like it. Unilock also offers porcelain tile. We work with a company that's based out of Italy, but also has manufacturing capability in Memphis, Tennessee, which allows us to get porcelain a lot quicker than some of the other suppliers that have to bring in product from across the pond. We have some pretty interesting colors, some wood grains, some interesting sizes. Here you see what we offer in 600 by 600, but we also have longer slabs, 400 by 800, in some wood grains and some fusion colors, and one very large at 400 by 1200. All of them are 20 millimeters thick. We offer some natural stones in sandstone and limestone, a couple grays. Indian Coast is a really, really nice deep buff color with some rose veining in it that's very distinct and very interesting. We offer those in a few different sizes, all at 22 millimeters thick. We continue to offer 3 colors of flamed granite in 2 different thicknesses, either 25 millimeter or 50 millimeter thick. And just to round out our natural stone offering, we've recently brought in a very nice looking blue stone from Tuscany. It's a very pale gray blue, very similar to some of the North American blue stones, but in this case, it's extremely durable, rivaling any North American product on the market. And speaking with the Buccini rep, they've actually started using some of this stone, albeit in a thicker size, for some of the Tuscan roads. And we're offering this in 3 different sizes. And at 38 millimeters thick, I actually really like this for pedestal applications. So something to consider there. I hope you've already heard of Ucara, Unilock's facade face wall. We introduced it a couple of years ago, and since then it's really taken off. Essentially, you have 2 different sizes of backer blocks, and then a number and assortment of fascia panels that hang off the backer blocks. We've taken the technology a step further and introduced the new modular system. It's going to be available in all the fascia textures and colors that you've become used to with the regular Ucara system. Aside from aesthetics, the real benefit to this system is definitely going to be the savings of time and money. It only consists of 3 lightweight aluminum components that can be lifted onto any roof deck. They go together fairly fast. There's only 3 pieces to the actual system itself. You have the barbecue unit, which houses the grill top, the corner unit, which then ties in the island unit. All this can go together and be cladded in just about 90 minutes. What's truly remarkable about this system is that it only really goes together using 12 screws. You place the 2 units together, clamp them together, use the self-tapping screws, and you're off to the races. It's also been engineered to minimize cuts. When installing the 2 units together, you're really only taking up about 8 cuts. Compare that to a traditional system, and the savings are quite evident. Let's take a look. So here you can see they've got a double unit. So you got your grill island with multiple islands together. The guys just self-taps those screws right in, connect all the units together, and start cladding it. Before long, you have a finished product. That concludes our presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Danny Gatto, and alongside me is David Robbins.
Hey everyone.
So we will take some live questions now. There was a couple of questions submitted through the chat format, and I will just read that question. Not sure if everyone's seen it or not, but yes. Okay, so from an architect named John, shade structures like umbrellas or canopies are often used over seating areas in roof gardens. These need some means of ballasting to prevent winds from blowing these structures away. Does Unilock have products to hold these fixtures in place? Similarly, hold down products for solar panels and wind washing equipment. So great question. Currently, we do not have a specific product that does that. Typically, these structures are mounted or secured prior to our pavers being installed. So in that case, the pavers would be installed around these structures. Not to say going forward, maybe a product will be developed and released to market, but currently we do not have such products. I mean, typically structure, we don't recommend core drilling into our products because of the thickness of the product. It will compromise the structural strength of the concrete paver. But surface mounting for light, like for benches, stuff like that is okay and has been done and continues to be done. But larger structures where wind, basically it becomes a sail, that's not advised. Hopefully that answers that question. Dave, do you want to take the next one?
Sure. The question is, drain needs to be waterproofed on the membrane level. I did not see the detail on the granular. Yeah, so the waterproof membrane that you would have the drain coming off of that would be your typical, your detail. I'll check back on that detail, but with the granular, you might be relying on just the roof slab drains. Which is why it's very important to have a free draining gravel system. If we're talking about on grade, if we're talking about a ground level roof deck buildup, then yeah, we would need to have that either a bi-level drain, so you would slope the platform to the surface drain, and then you would want a roof drain. That's why it's very important to have free draining gravel below your area, below your platform to take the water. So we have another question about with stabilization grid. I'm guessing we're talking about the drive cell that we were talking about in the presentation. Can a heated driveway be achieved? It's an interesting question. Theoretically, I would imagine yes. I have not seen it done. If typically what we would recommend is if it's a glycol system, a glycol loop, that it be embedded in concrete, and that just helps kind of stabilize the whole system. When we've also seen it attached to a grid system, a metal grid, wire grid. The issue can become when you have settlement or you have shifting, that whole area is going to shift and it's going to push your pavers out.
Perfect. So I'll grab the next one, Dave.
Yep.
So next question, can I ask if the cement in the pavers are made in Canada or abroad? Is that still a coal-intensive process? Can I ask that also? So all of our products outside of natural stone, the cement or the concrete products are all produced locally. So we do source local materials and aggregates to produce our products. In terms of the question, the coal-intensive process, like with any concrete, there is, I'm not 100% sure about the coal being used. Dave, would you know?
No, I don't believe we use coal to make our pavers. That's not a Unilock's a fairly green company, and I'm 100% sure we don't use coal to construct the pavers.
Perfect. Next question from Constantine. Do you offer outdoor steps? How do you clean the rough surface of Revella slab? And what is the friction coefficient of the porcelain tile? So your first question, yes, we do have a number of different options when it comes to outdoor steps. We have precast steps, we have natural stone steps that we bring in. So definitely reach out to us at the end of this presentation or download our catalog, and there's a number of different options that should be available to satisfy your project. The other question, how do you clean the rough surface of the Revella slab? So it is a shot blast finish. Basically, to clean it, you can just use your regular garden hose or light pressure wash to clean the surface. We do have aftermarket cleaning solutions that are green friendly to remove organic staining if that happens, or food staining and such. You can also seal the products as well. We do have a number of sealants available. In regards to the question of friction coefficient of porcelain tiles, so the porcelain tiles we do bring in, they are from Italy, from two companies, two manufacturers in Italy we source our porcelain from. And all of the porcelain that we do bring in does have the slip coefficient that's currently adheres to the standards that for the Canadian market. But we do have that technical data available. So again, reach out to us and we can definitely provide the specifics for each individual tile that we do have. Dave?
Yeah, I would also kind of offer that when we're talking about cleaning the Revella slab or any of our pavers, or most of our pavers rather, the Revella slab does have a face mix, so it does have that protective quarter inch of pure cement, and in this case, in some of the cases for Revella, also the aggregate chip. So most of the staining is going to be surface staining and could be easily washed off. But yeah, the porcelain tile is obviously there's different technical information for different slabs, but they all do meet the coefficient of friction for Ontario. The next question is, please confirm the statement that roof-mounted LNG service piping can be run in the space under the pedestal paver assembly with gas code reference. Yeah, that's one of the biggest benefits of using a pedestal system. You have that void space below. So if you wanted to run a gas line to power the grill or what have you, that's absolutely possible. The next question is, will Enduracolor fade in time? Well, everything fades in time, but the color itself in the product should you'll get tired of the color before it fades. We have projects like Mallaston Square in Toronto that's pushing 20 years old, and it still looks fantastic. I was literally out there a couple of months ago, and it looks fantastic. So it does depend on the product that we're talking about, but when it comes to Enduracolor, it's a very robust longevity product. We'll take the next one, Danny.
Sure. So next question is, what is the price difference between pedestal versus installed over aggregates, including all required substrate, etc.? Just a percentage difference. So the pedestal option is definitely more costly. And usually when pedestals are specified, it's specified for a specific reason, because it can't, the system or the roof deck cannot be built up with aggregate base. And the benefits, obviously, of the pedestals are those that Dave spoke about earlier. So there is definitely a cost difference. That's why we not typically, but we do see often where a pedestal specified project gets value engineered to granular base. Now with granular base, of course, you got that weight consideration. So I guess the price difference, I don't know if I could put a percentage on it offhand. I would have to check check the cost of, building up a base, let's say, 300 mil base compared to using a pedestal of that same height, and the labor implications with that. We would have to get back to you on that kind of costing, but there's definitely a price difference, pedestals versus granular.
Yeah, we're talking about a system that is kind of born out of a convenience or necessity. So it's one of those situations, much like permeable paving. You're not going to do this unless you either need to do it or it makes sense to do it, and therefore it's going to be a little bit more expensive. It also can be impacted by how high you go, right? So if the higher the pedestal, the more the cost is impacted.
Perfect. So next question is, the wall indicated, does it need foundation, say 3 feet 6 inch deep, and do you have engineered retaining wall? So yes, absolutely. We do have a number of engineered retaining wall products. So we do have a service that we do offer. We partner with the innovator of segmental retaining walls, which is Reese Wall Systems, and they handle all of our engineered wall designs. For the wall that was mentioned in the presentation, that's a Ucara modular wall system. It does not need the foundation, because it's a segmental retaining wall. There is no concrete base or poured base. Basically, the first course of the product is either buried. When using that product on, let's say, a roof deck, as mentioned in the presentation, we do have different components that are used to build up that application on a roof deck. So we have a universal base pad that acts as sort of a mini foundation. Anything else you want to add to that, Dave?
No, that's really good. I mean, obviously, it's going to depend on the situation. Depending on the wall that you're using. For the Ucara, Danny's correct. Granular, compacted granular base, or our base units will do the job. And if you get higher than that, then you have to look at something else. But it is a kind of a case-by-case basis, I'd say.
Absolutely, yeah. And with Ucara, what Dave showed in his presentation on the roof deck, the modular units, the modular system was used to build out a kitchen or a barbecue unit. But please reach out to us when it comes to any retaining wall. We can definitely direct you and give the yes or no on product application. applications, whether it's suitable or not. We have many, many different options. We showed the UCARA system because it is a newer system for us, and it does open up a lot of different options on the design end. So next question. Do you have covers for attachments at removable swing stage or tie-off nails on the pedestal type application through the Paver system?
Yes, that in this situation, I've run into this a few times. We don't manufacture anything for like a davit arm assembly cover or anything like that. We've in certain situations we've seen removable trays that are countersunk that will accept a paver unit inside the tray that then is easily just kind of pulled out and removed. That is about as close as we would get to something like that. But specifically manufacture something for covers is not what we do. If you want any kind of information about the tray system, I have loads of examples I can pass on to you if you want to shoot me an email. Next question is the last picture of the outdoor kitchen. How do you secure to the ground, if required, the modular aluminum framing? I've seen tapcons just being used or any kind of concrete screw placed in. But honestly, the weight of these units, once you've clad the entire unit in fascia panels, it's not going anywhere. I know that doesn't answer code, but affixing something, depending on where it is and what application you're using this for, a simple concrete screw will work fine.
Perfect. So next question, please comment on color consistency and fading over 5 to 10 years. So again, going back to what David answered earlier, with our EnduraColor process, what we call it in the industry is a face mix product. So with that, we introduced that technology a few decades ago. And with that, the finer aggregate color and cement is infused in the top portion of the paver. So with that, we can get our unique finishes, our deep colors, and as time goes on, that does not wear, that does not fade as traditional concrete pavers would. So hopefully that answers your question. And some of our other products in our Elegance line, which is a wet cast formulation, that has a totally different proprietary blend to it, and same thing, it will the color will not fade and it will last basically forever. Hopefully that answers your question.
The next one is I will say just commenting on the color consistency. Like I mentioned before, the Mel Lastman Square example is a 27-year-old job and it still looks fantastic. The color fading over 5 to 10 years. I mean, I've been with Unilock for just over 7 years, and the first jobs that I've installed still look brand new. When the technology that we use, the sealants that we can apply to products, it just basically it does a great job at resisting the elements, repelling UV, staining and fading over the years. Freezing and thawing is considered. How is freeze thaw considered? We always double up at Unilock. We always go beyond the standards, and we test all our products against the freeze thaw standards of the ASTM, and we always go one step beyond that. So it's not an issue.
Perfect. Yeah. So I was just going to add to that, Dave, and a lot of times there's the misconception that if a failed interlock pavement, if that fails, it's the product. More often than not, it's actually the base construction. So as Dave mentioned in his presentation, the industry has gone away from using limestone screenings just for that simple fact that it does hold moisture and water, and freeze thaw then becomes an issue, and you'll get heaving of the product. The pavers themselves are usually perfectly fine and reusable, but the actual base construction is what the culprit is. So like with most construction, you need to get that water away, and proper drainage needs to be designed. Can the pedestal system support vehicular loads? I would say a hard no on that one. I would definitely, I mean, yes, no, they cannot. Unless there's a future product to come out, we'll say no on that one.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Daniel. It's not something that's designed for vehicular loads. It's also not designed for the torque of a turning car tire. This is strictly an elevated roof deck application.
So yeah, no, thanks everyone. So Dave and I were going to talk in unison, like a synchronized swim team. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Hopefully we answered your questions. Please feel free to reach out to Dave and myself via the virtual booth. My colleagues, Dave Laurie and Alex Bartolo, are also on hand to answer any questions, and hopefully you enjoyed our presentation. Dave?
Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate the opportunity.